At least 3 people died today as demonstrators took to the streets of Zimbabwe's capital to protest what they see as the rigging of Monday's presidential election. The sitting president and leader of the ZANU-PF party, Emmerson Mnangagwa, ran against a number of other candidates, including the leading challenger, Nelson Chamisa. In a moment, William Brangham will talk with a reporter from Zimbabwe. But first, we get the latest from the capital, Harare, from Jonathan Miller of Independent Television News.
If you sell out, they chant, you will see that we are very dangerous. It's a threat directed at the head of Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission, who's promised that the will of the people will not be subverted. They think that's a lie.
Well, you can see what's happening here. There's a lot of anger on the streets, and the result of the presidential election hasn't even been called. So far, with the parliamentary results coming in, it looks like a ZANU-PF landslide. If these people are denied what they consider to be their victory, it will be chaos. Should you not wait until you have an actual result?
No, we are not going to wait for that.
The movement for democratic change already smells a rat. Mugabe stole elections. They're not going to let that happen this time, and they're convinced the results were rigged. We moved with the surging crowd. Rocks were thrown into the compound of the ruling ZANU-PF party, and this was the response.
Okay, get down, get down, get down, get down, get down, get down, behind the tree.
This is potentially disastrous for the new Zimbabwe.
This way.
Let's go. Hey, journalists, can we go?
Journalists!
Journalists, can we go? Be careful,
Okay.
journalists! Journalists, can we go?
Ray, come with me!
This country, so desperate to shed pariah status.
This is now an extremely dangerous situation. There's a lot of live fire going on, but this crowd will not be subdued. They're still outside the ZANU-PF headquarters here, and they are so angry.
Elsewhere in Harare, protesters caught by the army were severely beaten. This scene hauntingly reminiscent of the violence that characterized Mugabe's despotic rule. As the afternoon wore on, the crackle of automatic fire could be heard sporadically across the city. Riot police fired tear gas and soldiers were deployed as armoured personnel carriers and water cannon cruised the streets and an army helicopter kept watch from above. This evening, the streets of the capital have been emptied. It's spookily quiet and it's tense. No word from either presidential contender other than on Twitter. Nelson Chamisa, the challenger, still claiming victory. Emmerson Mnangagwa, the incumbent, calling, ironically, for everyone to act peacefully. The result, we're told, will be announced tomorrow.
For more insight into what's going on with this election results, I'm joined by Jonga Kandamiri. He's a reporter who files for Voice of America. He's based in Zimbabwe. Jonga, thank you very much for being here. Could you give us a little bit more of a sense of what is driving these protests?
What's driving these protests, William, is the slowness by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. The opposition members think that ZEC is manipulating the results. The ZEC is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission by delaying even to announce election results from within the metropolitan, Harare metropolitan constituencies. Instead, they started by announcing from far away in remote rural areas. And these areas are dominated by the ruling party, ZANU-PF. And I think this is what triggered the demonstrations that took place this afternoon.
So people's concern seems to be that because it's taking so long, they think that there's some foul play going on, that the election results are being rigged somehow.
That's true. And also they were saying that their candidate, the presidential candidate, that's Advocate Nelson Chamisa, they think that he won resoundingly. But the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is yet to announce presidential results. What it did starting yesterday was to announce National House of Assembly results from remote areas. And only today did they announce results from the cities.
I understand that there were also complaints about the lead up to the election, with accusations of voters being coerced and pressure being exerted. What are election observers in Zimbabwe saying?
They gave press statements on what they found or discovered during this electoral process. In a way, they endorsed the election as peaceful, but they have recommendations which they sent to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. And one of them is to allow enough time for the inspection and verification of the voters' roll. That is one of the areas where the opposition was complaining that they only got the voters' roll in electronic mode 2 days before the nomination.
We saw that 3 people have already died in these protests. What is it like there now, and is it your sense that the protests will continue tomorrow?
I think the protests will continue tomorrow, but there's heavy presence of anti-riot police and officers and the military on the streets. I tried to stroll down the streets to check on the conditions and situation on the streets. The army and the police details were chasing out people. So I'm not sure whether those who are demonstrating will be able to gather in the city unless they gather outside the city and then they come and demonstrate. But I think the police and the military are ready to deal with that.
All right, Junga Kandamiri, thank you very much for your time.
Welcome, William. Thank you so much.